Man, oh man, oh man. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have an episode for you today of the Be Great podcast? Oh, sometimes in life, people just don't want to learn and they don't want to accept the reality and they don't want to take accountability. And what I'm referring to, by the way, is obviously the College Football Playoff Committee. That's who I'm referring to. They continue to not learn. They continue to take no accountability, and we're going to talk about it. Now, I'm going to get into my game picks first, and then we're going to go into talking about the newest college football playoff rankings. So I'm not going to say much about it right now because I'm going to go ahead and go through my game picks first. So, first and foremost, Indiana, Ohio State. I guess we'll just start with the big one. This game has a lot of, I guess, what's the word I should use? A lot of meaning when it comes to the playoffs. With if Ohio State loses again, that pretty much knocks them out of the Big Ten championship. And who knows where they would fall in the rankings. And in a loss for Indiana could be detrimental. It could very well knock them out of the playoffs. We'll see. I have a take on that later once we get to the rankings, but a loss for either one is not great. I'm going to pick Ohio State. They're at home. I think Indiana's fraudulent. I mean, look at their strength of schedule. They've played nobody. They've proven absolutely nothing. So I'm going to go with Ohio State on this one. I think they win the game. Ole Miss at Florida is interesting. Florida has become a more interesting team. DJ Lagway has added a spark to this team. I think this is absolutely a trap game for Ole Miss. And it's hard because a part of me feels like Florida could absolutely pull this off, but I guess for Ole Miss's sake, they need to hope that they are just focused in on this game. They cannot let this game slip from their hands or they're done. They're done. So give me the Rebels. Give me Ole Miss. BYU at Arizona State. BYU needs this win. They absolutely need this win, but I have a feeling they might just start falling off. And I think Arizona State is a sneaky good team with Scattaboo, their running back. So give me Arizona State with them being at home. Colorado at Kansas, another scary one for the Big 12 because if Colorado loses this game, you're really looking at the Big 12 like, goodness gracious, y'all are bad. But, I'm going to pick Colorado. This is a typical letdown spot for Kansas, and Colorado has a lot of momentum coming into this game. So give me Colorado. Kentucky at Texas. I think Kentucky can give Texas some fits. Kentucky had a bye week last week, so they absolutely could give Texas some fits here. But with it being at Texas and Kentucky's offense just being so mediocre, you got to go. You got to go Texas here. You got to. But it could be a look ahead spot for Texas with them having Texas A&M next week. Alabama at Oklahoma is an interesting one. It's going to be very cool to see Alabama on the road at Oklahoma, but Oklahoma just doesn't have the players. They just don't have the team right now. They don't have the quarterback. They don't have the coaching. They don't have anything going for them in this game. And so I think Alabama will handle Oklahoma pretty easily. Iowa State at Utah. Iowa State needs this win 100%. They need it. They need to win out to even have a chance to go to the Big 12 championship. And Utah has just fallen apart at the seams. They gave Colorado a run for their money, but you got to go Iowa State here. I think at this point in the season, they're just the better football team. Army at Notre Dame. I'm not going to try and be trendy and pick Army or anything. I'm going Notre Dame here. They seem locked in. I don't think they're going to let one slip like they did against Northern Illinois. I don't think they're going to let it happen again. I'd actually be more worried for them next week facing USC, ironically. But I think they're going to beat Army. Texas A&M at Auburn. Auburn sucks. Give me Texas A&M. Although you need Texas A&M better be careful and not look ahead to Texas next week. Because look, Kentucky and Auburn are not good, but if Texas or Texas A&M looks ahead, it could get dicey. USC versus UCLA classic rivalry game. Both these teams are terrible this year, but give me USC. Lincoln Riley desperately needs this win, and he desperately needs these next two wins, desperately. So give me USC. Give me the Trojans. Those are your Week 13 game picks. Crazy that we are this far into the season, but let's get to what just angers me. It just angers me. Let's get to the playoff rankings. So, oh man, it's just terrible. You know, they made the rankings last week, and you heard the outcry and everyone complaining about how terrible the rankings were. And the committee decides to not just double down, but to make the rankings even worse. And we're going to go through everything that's bad about these rankings, and there's a number of things that's bad. Where should I start? The disrespect to SMU is continuing to happen. I have yet to hear the committee explain to me why SMU's 9-1 is not as good as Miami's, Notre Dame's, Penn State's, Texas, or Ohio State's 9-1. I have yet to get an explanation as to why SMU's 9-1 is not good enough for the committee. And if the committee would be honest with us, what they would really tell you is that it's not that their 9-1 isn't as good. It's their logo is not as notable. That's what they would tell you. Or well, that they wouldn't tell you that, but that's what they're saying behind closed doors. Because there's no reason that SMU at 9-1 should be at 13. Absolutely no reason. Let's get to these SEC teams. So I just, and honestly, this might be what angers me the most. Not Indiana or Penn State or Texas's strength of schedule and all that stuff, which is bad in of itself. What angers me the most is that last week the committee had Miami at what, 7? Because Georgia was at 11. Wait, no, Georgia was at 12. Sorry. They had Georgia at 12. They had Ole Miss at 11, Alabama at 10, and then I think Miami at 9. I think that's how it was. And they had Miami at 9. So they had Miami ahead of Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia. And now Alabama is ahead of Miami, but Ole Miss and Georgia are still behind Miami. And I'm just having a hard time understanding how that's even possible. And you might say, well, Grayson, what changed from last week to this week? Well, Miami didn't play. Ole Miss, did Ole Miss even play? I don't even remember if Ole Miss played. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't remember if Ole Miss played. I don't think they did. Alabama and Georgia are the only ones out of those four that played. Georgia beat the now number 11 Tennessee by 2 touchdowns. Alabama beat a medical school in Mercer at home. And yet, Alabama, I'm saying it slowly because I feel like I have to try and fathom why this is even the case. And now you have Alabama ahead of Miami because they beat Mercer, but Georgia still has to be 2 spots behind Miami after beating number 11 Tennessee by 2 touchdowns. I'm sorry, what? Can you just run that by me one more time in a way that it could feasibly, logically make any type of sense? But you can't do that because it doesn't make any sense. How is that even possible? How? I'll tell you how it's possible. Because it seems to me that even though Nick Saban has left, we still have a bunch of Alabama lovers in the media and on that committee, which is mind blowing to me. Mind blowing. And I will tell you this, I think Georgia fans 100% have a right to be angry with this ranking because 10 is still, once again, way too low. But Tennessee fans have a right too. Tennessee has to be looking at this saying, well, wait just a minute. We have the same record as Alabama, and we beat them. And yet we're 4 spots behind them and are the first ones out of the playoff. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I just think this is such a shame. And I'll tell you, the biggest issue is that they have to have, a group of 5 team, and they have to have a Big 12 champion and an ACC champion. Because let's all be honest here, this should just be a Big 10 versus SEC tournament if we're being honest with each other. Miami's not good enough. Notre Dame's not good enough. Boise State, don't make me laugh. BYU, Colorado, don't make me laugh. They're not good enough. And the fact that the committee has the audacity to sit there after the rankings come out, they have the audacity to stand there. Ward Manuel, the athletic director of a team who had to cheat to win a national championship, he stands there and he says, oh, Indiana just has to be competitive against Ohio State. Are you kidding me? No, 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 no. They better win. I don't want to hear this, oh, they just need to be competitive. You know what? As a Georgia fan, I wish all Georgia had to do was have one hard opponent on their schedule, and all they're asked is to just be competitive. You just got to be competitive. You don't got to win. I wish. I wish we had a bunch of Akrons and Western Michigans and then had one hard game against like Alabama, and all we're asked to do is be competitive, and you're in. Give me a break. Give me a break. It's ridiculous. And at this point, as a Georgia fan, I don't want Georgia to be in the SEC championship game. I don't, especially since the risk of losing the SEC championship game too high. Because not only do you lose, you don't get the extra bye week. Also, if you lose, you have 3 losses. What happens then? What happens then? And I'm just curious because I think if Texas and Alabama win out, then it'll be Texas, Alabama in the SEC championship game. Quick question. If Alabama loses and has 3 losses, are they out? Are they out? I think they would be out, which is kind of crazy to think about. Because how could you then put them ahead? You can't put them ahead of Mississippi or of Ole Miss or Georgia because they have more losses. You can't put them ahead of Tennessee. Tennessee beat them head to head and has 1 less loss. What do you do? Just an interesting question. And Alabama fans would be irate, I promise you. You think they're not obnoxious now? Let that happen. Oh my goodness. They would never shut up. They would probably claim the national championship, actually, is probably what they would do. That's the type of people they are. And another question, if Texas loses, if let's say Alabama wins, if Texas loses, where do they go? Because if Texas loses, they should be out. 2 losses, and your best win is what? Vanderbilt? Yeah. Goodbye. We'll see you later. See you next season. The committee is just painting themselves into such a corner. And it's just every week. I will say every week I'm super interested to see the rankings because I'm always like, man, what idiotic thing are they going to do this week? Like I said, when Georgia beat Tennessee, they're gonna have to figure that jumbled mess out. The Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee jumbled little mess, and they did about what I expected them to do. Just put Tennessee at the back of the line. That's what I kind of figured they do because it's lazy, and that's who they are. That's what they are. But it's just I mean, you can't convince me that Miami's 9-1, Notre Dame's 9-1, Indiana's 10-0, Penn State's 9-1, um, Texas's 9-1 is more impressive or better than Georgia's 8-2. You can't convince me. You'll never convince me of that because it's impossible to convince that. And it's so I can't honestly, actually, I can believe it, but it's so crazy that there are people on this planet that exist who go on X and want to tweet out. I know it's not Twitter, but they want to tweet out that, well, it's obvious that the SEC team should be in the back of the line. They have 2 losses. Penn State only has 1 loss. Notre Dame only has 1 loss. Indiana's undefeated. You have to give them respect. It's so interesting because that's the typical you are what your record says you are, which is complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. Not every 8-2 is built the same. Not every 9-1, not every undefeated season is built the same. It's not. And if you want to continue to lie to yourself and pretend that it is, that's fine. Don't be shocked when an SEC team wins the national championship. Don't be shocked. Don't be shocked. And look, Ohio State in this format might get a free ride to the semifinals by just having to face BYU and Boise State. That's fine. Let them get a free ride. They'll get stomped in the semifinals. Do you want to know why? Because there's something to be said about being battle tested. None of these Big Ten teams are battle tested, not even Oregon. They're not battle tested. They have faced Purdue and Northwestern. And I know what they would come back and say, well, I mean, Georgia, and I mean, y'all face Mississippi State. Mississippi State sucks. This is true. Who's the next worst team in the SEC? What, Vanderbilt? I mean, they beat Virginia Tech. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. So don't sit here and tell me, because Vanderbilt would beat Purdue and Northwestern. Who else? Who else is in that garbage conference? I can't even remember. UCLA. Give me a break. There's only 2 good teams in the Big Ten. That's Oregon and Ohio State. The rest of them are overrated pieces of trash. Indiana is not good. And you might say, oh, but Grayson, what if Indiana beats Ohio State? Okay, that doesn't mean Indiana's good in my book. That just means Ohio State's trash as well. It makes zero sense to me how you can defend these rankings because it makes no logical sense whatsoever. Penn State at 4. What have they done except lose to Ohio State? What have they done? What has Texas done except lose to Georgia? Riddle me that. What has Notre Dame done? They lost to Northern Illinois and yet get to sit at 6. Don't have to play. What's so sickening is that if Notre Dame wins out, beats Army, beats USC, they not only get to host a playoff game, but they also get a free bye week because they're independent and don't play a conference championship game. That is absolute insanity. Insanity. It's crazy. And I'm not saying they deserve a bye. They surely do not, because then they get a 2-week break. No, 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 no. That's why what I wouldn't want is to go into a conference championship game, lose, and then not only did I go to an SEC championship game and lose, but now I have to face Notre Dame at Notre Dame, who's been preparing for 2 weeks. Yeah, I'll pass. I'll pass. Just don't even let us play in the SEC championship game. Give us 2 weeks to prepare. I would much rather take Kirby having 2 weeks to prepare than and going on the road for a playoff game, which I know how it stands right now. Georgia would play at Penn State. Oh, please let that happen. You have all the Big Ten homers on X talking about, oh, the SEC, they won't like it when they're playing in cold weather. Would you give me a break? Look, I'll tell you now, you better hope in that first round, any SEC team that has a bye, or sorry, that has to go on the road up into the Big Ten cold weather, you better hope you beat us. Because if you don't, you're done. You're done. Because A, there won't be no cold weather anymore because we're going to neutral sites where most of them have a roof. And if they don't, they're not in cold environments. Okay, the Rose Bowl is in California. It's not cold. Okay? So you better hope that that theory is true. Because if not, you're in trouble. And also, that doesn't take into account, I would love for Georgia to go to Penn State and play them. Georgia, would Penn State cross the 50-yard line? That offense is terrible. They almost lost to Bowling Green. They suck. Georgia would beat Penn State. Alabama would beat Penn State. Ole Miss, spoiler alert, would beat Penn State. Tennessee, who's right now not even in the playoff, would beat Penn State because Penn State can't score. And yeah, their defense is good. Their defense is not holding an SEC offense to 10 points. It's not happening. But an SEC defense can hold a Penn State's offense to 10 points. I can tell you that right now. Ohio State's defense that isn't even that good held them to 13. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So go ahead. Go ahead. Have Georgia have to travel to Bloomington, Indiana. Go ahead. See how that goes for you. See how great Curtis Rourke, Drew Aller looks against the Georgia defense, and Alabama defense, and Ole Miss defense. Go ahead. Go ahead. A Texas defense if they don't win the SEC championship. Go ahead. See, we'll see how that goes for you. Georgia's already been to Notre Dame and beaten them, so I'm not worried about Notre Dame. Certainly not with Marcus Freeman. The playoff rankings every week continue to be an absolute joke. And they will continue to be that way until this committee wakes up. But they won't. They're just going to continue to double down, triple down, quadruple down because at this point, they're a bunch of morons. And you know what? Whatever. Whatever. I hope so badly that we get into this playoff and we're left with like, I don't even know if it's possible, and we're left with like like 3 or 4 SEC teams. And we get to just look at the committee and all these idiotic Big Ten homers and tell them to shut up. You don't know football. You don't know football. And you have Ward Manuel talking about how, well, we watch the games every week. We watch the film. You watch the film. Are you kidding me, Ward? Are you kidding me? Ward, have you watched the film on your garbage program up there in Ann Arbor? Have you watched the film, Ward? Because they suck. I don't think you watch film. I don't believe that you watch the games. I don't believe it for a second. I don't. Can Ward Manuel tell me what a cover two is? I don't think he can. I don't think he can. Look, everyone knows how I feel about about the committee and their rankings. It's ridiculous. And I'm sure I'll be right back here next week talking about how ridiculous they are. Speaking of next week, because of Thanksgiving and all the festivities, I'll probably change up my schedule. Usually it's Tuesday and Friday. Next week, because of Thanksgiving, I'll have an episode out probably on Monday, and then I'll probably try and get one in on Wednesday. But I'll update more on that on Monday when you'll have my next episode 30, by the way. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. Picks done, ranting about the committee done. I did my weekly duties, and I hope everyone has a great day. Enjoy the college football tomorrow, and yeah, I hope your team wins, unless you're for some reason a fan of UMass. Everyone have a great day.